everyone, thank you so much for sticking with us. It is your play-by-play, supposedly, for the day, Jolly, and I am joined here with the ever-amazing Crumbs. And we just saw game number 1 in this best-of-5 here between Winthrop and Harrisburg University. And to the surprise of many, Harrisburg swept that game, pretty definitively, huh, Crumbs?
Yeah, it was. They had a team fighting composition that was expected to win in the team fights. And then while that did happen, the surprising thing is that usually when you draft these kinds of comps, the laning phase is where you struggle in the early game. But that didn't happen at all. They got solo kills in the bot lane. They picked on Doxa in the mid lane, got a bunch of kills onto the Zoe. The Morgana from Shorter Ace was exceptional. Good binds, good roams, good team fighting. And then the Wukong was actually doing the Wukong thing that you do into the Gnar. Survive the early game, and then suddenly you're a team fighting menace. So everything went almost too well, which is why we're a little suspicious if it can go the same way again for game 2.
Yeah, kind of sus. I mean, HG Storm is still on the red side, though, here, so Winthrop is remaining on the blue side. We'll see how that works out. No real changes, actually no changes to the ban phase here for Winthrop. And it looks like it's going to be about the same kind of thing from Harrisburg again. They were pretty happy with not seeing those champions in. You really don't want Doxa to get on that Syndra. The Varus is going to be banned out here. So hybrids, going to lock in that Nautilus again. Very, very high priority right now. And having the Thresh banned out, you kind of expect it.
Run it back. Run it back, Storm. You see the Nautilus again. This is exactly the same ban and first pick as game 1. So why not take the set again? And yeah, they're just going to run you back. The salty run back. I think Winthrop Eagles felt like that game was a little suspicious. I do think, though, that what Firefire said about mid and the impact that you want your jungler to have on your mid lane is going to be different, and so the jungle will be changed indeed. No more Gwen, instead it will be the Rumble. Much better for the team fighting, and a lovely setup with the Nautilus. You just press R on somebody, wait for the knockup, drop the carpet bombing on them, and they're out of the fight.
And another highly contested champion here, usually we've seen in the bans, if not in the picks. So Frostforest gonna run that one down. And we have seen some absolutely insane equalizers. If anybody else is gonna give it to us, it will be Frostforest here on the side of Winthrop. So a lot more aggression early on, capable, but not as quick, still very quick clear times, but not quite as quick as the Gwen, who has one of the fastest right now in the jungle.
Yeah. Gwen. Triple flex, I'm pretty sure people have yet to figure out, but she'll likely be able to be flexed into the bottom lane as well. I'm sure there's some sort of lane that you can play with her. Just shows you how strong the pick is right now. But what I like about that strength, though, is that it's not as oppressive as most champions that enter the Rift for the first time are. You just can't pick her all the time. That's something that I think is really valuable in this pick thus far. You have to be skilled at her, and she's not all-purpose, which allows us for more variety and teams to fall back into comfort, what they've been practicing for many more patches, which Rumble is one of them.
And a little more particular, too, in terms of like the composition and what you want to kind of gain from that. And we didn't really see the early aggression that we kind of needed to from Winthrop's previous composition. That was a big problem. We had the expectation, and we knew that they had the desire to push as hard as they could in the laning phase. And while Harrisburg was pushed back a good majority of the game, they held on so well and prevented the early game from snowballing whatsoever. And I keep mentioning that. It was just such a good job, and particularly, you know, seeing Sandflame being able to come back from that and use those Cyclones so incredibly well. We're going to get the Xin Zhao, though, here for Shorter Ace, one of the favorites we have seen quite a bit from this player, so certainly something to fear as he has found a lot of success on this aggressive jungler.
Yeah, the Xin, I also love his champion pool and saying how you don't got the quick hands. Well, you're playing Xin Zhao, Morgana, and Udyr. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. The skill shots are not very relevant to your champion pool. They're so easy to land what you have, and playing your team fights is just you press a few buttons and you don't need to be making any fancy combos. So you can get a lot of value out of that one, and I think that what Shorter Ace did quite well was in helping Sandflame, like you mentioned in the last game with the Wukong, to get out of that early laning phase. That first dive they found onto the Gnar that really set up Wukong for success, I think was exactly what they needed. We'll see if he can do it again, as the Xin is a very gank-heavy jungler, and we'll be looking for plenty of opportunities to go in, as the composition for Winthrop Eagles wants to be in your face shoving. This is a Tristana in the mid lane. It's the answer that Doxa has against the Victor, now that Zed and Akali are banned.
kind of a similar setup to what we had before in terms of trying to get that early aggression on the laning phase. And then Harrisburg's team is absolutely exceptional when it gets to the team fight stage. So it's going to be kind of the same concept going into this for both of these teams. It's who can execute it better in this game number 2, who takes that early lead or prevents the early lead that will really make a difference. And this Tristana in the mid lane, I loved that flex pick. I was like, why Tristana? We haven't really seen Tristana at all. Maybe 1 or 2 bans from the previous games. But running her in the mid lane makes it so that Victor thought he was comfortable, confident, and Tristana's going to be running into it. So a lot more pressure available early on from the champions that were selected by Winthrop. Gives you a little bit more hope that they'll actually be able to execute that composition style.
I like what Winthrop has going on for them, not just because the Tristana, he's going to be much safer in the mid lane than the Zoe was early on as she got picked on, but you've got 4 threats and the Nautilus. There's a lot of damage here, so in the team fight, they're not going to be able to pile in and run into somebody and eliminate them right away. They need to respect every single member on the side of Winthrop or else they will lose the fight. And here is Harrisburg trying to cheeky level 1 invade. They saw what Nautilus did the last game, so they knew that something could be up, but this ward should be everything they need to know that they probably should return to their own side, while Winthrop responds in kind with their own wards on the red side.
Yeah, moving in, some picks coming out as well from Winthrop. They're like, I'm not sure if we should do this because we know that they have backed away, or we should know that they have backed away thanks to that ward as well in the river. So just returning back into lanes. Yeah, Winthrop deciding, okay, that is not a smart move, and definitely a smart move to avoid that. But getting some deep vision down to start things off, keeping eyes on shorter Ace means that Frost Forest might have a little bit of an advantage if he does want to engage early. And this is certain, Frost Forest, this is certainly one of the players who loves to be able to gank as quickly as possible. And with this Rumble, we can certainly expect that the second level 6 is hit, that Equalizer is dropping in one of these lanes. Yeah,
the Equalizer is just so nasty, especially when you start to prioritize these dragon fights, the early river team fights. Early Sorcerer Shoes is pretty much all you need for insane amounts of damage out of this champion. And the advantage he'll have now is knowing exactly where Shorter Ace is at. When Harrisburg invaded, they didn't commit to going all the way to red side. It had already been a little bit too late, and nothing will happen in the bot lane. But because it was so late in the invade, they didn't go further, so they didn't get a deep ward on the red side. So they don't actually know what Frost Forest is up to. They just know that the Xin Zhao is pathing from top to bottom, so they'll have to improvise in their pathing and will have to play it much safer than before.
That was potentially dangerous, though, from Sir Kenji. That was very reminiscent of the first blood that was picked up by Clyde in that first game. Sir Kenji getting the hook into the bush, into Clyde's bush over there, so he's going to have the exact same play style. And Hopeful did so well in that last game. We can expect the same thing, even with a lot of pressure from Winthrop's bottom lane. So I love how well they are handling this, a little bit behind, and they're going to be pressured quite a bit to start things out. But they're looking for the cheeky plays. They're not looking for those standard plays, and I think that's something that Harrisburg has been doing really well that is sort of unexpected for this team. And now it's going to be an engage. The flash in onto Sir Kenji, who uses the wall to flash in from Shorter Ace as well. Hopeful's not going to land that Void Seeker, and flashes in, trying to get the last auto off. It's not going to be enough. In comes Frost Forest, getting a little burn down on everyone, and Nautilus hooks the wrong direction. Clyde trying to stay alive, doesn't want to give that kill over to Saskio. Frost Forest is going to pick it up anyway. 2 kills for 0 in favor of Winthrop to start things out.
The action in the bottom lane just never stops. See, the difference this time around is that they just had the Rumble right behind them, and that Shorter Ace, it kind of forced that. They really went so hard to go onto the Nautilus, but he still found the angle on the hook, was able to displace himself just a tiny bit, and when Hopeful flashed in for that final auto attack thinking he'd get the kill, that was the cue for the Rumble to go in. And so flashing in here, they're already on the retreat, so you get the Jinx flash, but because Nautilus was able to displace himself and Shorter Ace already had used his charge, he doesn't get to follow it up after he lands his W, and so the Rumble can just keep going in. Shorter Ace tries to salvage it by getting 1 kill, and then I like this from Clyde, just pushing himself forward, saving his AD carry. I think that Saskio might have been able to get in range of hitting 1 final rocket onto his AD carry, and so he says, I'm probably going to go down. Let's make sure that it's just me and not all 3 of us.
And the heal from Saskia really coming in clutch there to keep Sir Kenji alive and gave them the ability to re-engage in that fight, securing one of the kills. Of course, I mean, Nautilus picks up the kill. Jinx is a little salty about that one. Just don't do it again, Nautilus, all right? It's hard when you've got that exhaust on such an engage-heavy champion. But I think they're okay with that. 2 assists here on the Jinx. Pressure in the bottom lane still consistently, and they're finding some pressure as well from Doxy here. Sir Kenji's going to go in on this one. Clyde is the target, but a nice chunk of damage from the Haymaker evens that fight out.
Okay, Mininar is being threatened for a dive here, but Xin and Tristan are here. Okay, he's got Flash.
He's going to hop. He is going to flash. Shorter Ace is in the wings like a Moss, using that to get up to the top. The TP was burned. Dox is taking a bit of damage, but not really worth the TP.
Sandflame could not have stayed in the turret. As Mininar, he would have died right there before like a Moss could have been able to collapse. So had to just run away and got safe. But you have the 3-man goon squad in the red side jungle, making sure that they all get back to their respective lanes and that the rest of Harrisburg's solo lanes go back to base, that they have to use the teleports to get back into their respective lanes. And so despite not getting a kill, still a good win out of Winthrop. Pressure as well as minions advantage.
It also kind of seems like in this bottom lane, Winthrop, Saskia, and Sir Kenji, they've kind of figured out how to initiate on this and really just staying away from Clyde, but it's not going to help when you get the flash in and the engage from Shorter Ace. The root comes down from Sir Kenji, but that will be a kill going over to Hopeful. Saskia out of mana. Can't really do anything here.
Really good face breaker out of Clyde there. Pulling Sir Kenji out of the hook was critical. Knew they didn't have flash and that the Xin was coming all the way down. I like the difference here in that Shorter Ace did not take the kill. They actually did let that final auto attack go onto Hopeful, making sure that the Kai'Sa gets strong, because on the one hand, you can give those kills over to the support, and there is a responsibility now on them to make value out of that gold in either roaming or strong team fighting. But when you give gold to the AD carry, oftentimes it means you can just leave them by themselves to 1v2, and the result is the same. You've got the support that is freed up to roam, except now your AD carry is actually much stronger.
And the meta right now for Collegiate is huge about roaming as early as possible, particularly sending up Sir Kenji would be the ideal mode here for Winthrop. They are going to get a move on this Dragon. No response from Harrisburg. Nobody was nearby, and no vision was set down here yet. So Winthrop once again kind of starts this game with a bit of a vision advantage. We'll see if Harrisburg can find the footing, though, to ensure that they can do what they did last game and just outplay that vision. The face breaker as an attempt, but it was a hook to follow it up. The equalizer on the backside is enough damage to take down Clyde, and another successful fight for Winthrop.
He's doing it for his laner. He's holding the wave, trying to keep as many minions from going to the turret. But the run for Sir Kenji and the Frumble and the Tristana just being so quick to punish him, it actually ends up being really damaging for Clyde. Going down that kill, the thing that's going to hurt him more is losing out on experience. He wasn't taking any of those CSs. He was away from the lane, and being far from level 6 should put Winthrop in a position to contest the next objective, primarily the Rift Herald. If any action happens that involves supports roaming up, you can count on the Nautilus being higher level than the set, having that ultimate available, and that can be just enough of an advantage for them to not go for the fight. Here he is again.
2 fights, though, as Shorter Ace was hiding in the bush there. Hybrids did take down Sandflame before Shorter Ace could engage. It looks like a Moss barely stays alive, but burns the ultimate. Shorter Ace now is on the run. Hybrids flashes forward. Now Frost Forest is here. Get a little bit of burn up in this game, and Hybrids is going to find another.
I think Sandflame baited a little bit too hard. He died with no Mega Gnar, no flash available, and just Hybrids didn't even have to burn his own flash, giving a kill over, hoping that Shorter Ace would go in. Some sort of miscommunication or slight underestimation of Aatrox's damage happened, because this damage is huge. This entire minion wave is, well, not the entire minion wave, but a big chunk of it going to the turret, the plate gold, and now the Aatrox being very fed. Let's see what actually ended up happening, because this should not have been the case. He's about to hit Mega, gets hooked, and just did not expect that final Q from doing that much damage.
And it was an exceptional amount, but you gotta recognize shorter ace, or not hybrids, is going to have that kind of damage at this point in the game. And now we'll have even more thanks to the extra gold from that fight. Frost Forest, man, I knew there were gonna be a lot of engages from this jungler, but constantly showing up at the right time in the right place. The communication is a big, big part of that. So we can tell that Winthrop is focusing on communicating, keeping vision down, and they are still in the lead in that aspect. Sandflame is going to take quite a bit of damage here. Hybrids wants to continue the fight, even though he's in a bunch of minions. Megadar is over, so that's the that was very close. That could have gone either way. Oh, and in the meantime, I love this game so far. It's 10 minutes. We got 6 kills. I got so much game here. Super Mega Death Rocket coming through.
Whoa!
It's no way. That predict was beautiful. Make that 6-1 in favor of Winthrop.
So the angle was exactly at the turret, thinking he'd base, but it actually just catches shorter ace right at the backside. What is Sir Kenji doing here?
And another fight as Sir Kenji gets taken down with the haymaker there. Clyde, though, is going to get hit by that rocket, and Saskio finds another kill. That's 2 in a row for this player. Doxa, though, gets ulted here by the Victor. Going to flash forward after using the hop, and the flash is taken from Like a Moss, but the ultimate is over. Like a Moss really wants this one. Takes a tower shot coming around this Raptor pit, but will not be able to find out Doxa.
Oh, the Rift Herald, okay. The action just never stops. Here they go after Victor. He has no flash.
Like a Moss definitely gonna go down here, and Hybrids is not the player that you want on Winthrop to be taking those kills. First tower going down. Shelly looking for another hit here. She's not gonna get it, even though the pressure is certainly on this bottom side. We got a minute left until the Dragon, and Winthrop is looking to get as much vision as possible here to just prevent Harrisburg from even coming close. And they're gonna find out Clyde. Oh, look at the equalizer. Here comes the teleport as well. The Haymaker Clyde is going to get hit by Doxa on the backside. And oh man, Harrisburg is not finding many successes in this game at all.
3 fights in 3 separate lanes, multiple times each time, and all of them go in the favor of Winthrop. It is just a ginormous snowball out of nowhere. Partially some mechanical misplays out of Harrisburg University, but on the other side, Winthrop is just having more members recognizing when they're strong and using advantage of the summoner spells. The Aatrox TPing down there, knowing that he could actually flank the Victor, and then the Rift Herald. Rumble was already intending to do that after it got taken in the top side, so suddenly they're snowballing out of control. At least Clyde is level 6 now. But they are so far behind when it comes to damage. You already have 3 completed mythics on the side of Winthrop, and that is going to be just enough for them to be continuing to take these early dragons and entirely deter Harrisburg from looking for more fights.
12 minutes and a 5K gold lead is actually massive, and not something that we're used to seeing, especially for these collegiate games in this round. I mean, we're at the semifinals right now, so these teams kind of got a feel for each other, but this does not feel like the same Harrisburg that we saw in that last game. They were staunching Winthrop's attempts at little successes, and they were finding small victories of their own. This game, it's the exact opposite. Winthrop is just preventing Harrisburg from doing anything, and every small victory that they try to take is immediately responded to. So Winthrop recognizing that, taking advantage of the style of play, and it's very adaptive, which is excellent to see from this team.
They made that call when the draft was nearly identical. When they first picked the Nautilus, they were happy to go into the set in Kai'Sa again, just saying, yeah, game 1 was our bad. We liked part of what our composition has. We know where we messed up. We got a feel for our opponent, what they were up to. We know what they're good at. Let's make sure we ban out the right champions, make sure we don't give them the Morgana again. And they have just soared. The Eagles are finding their way in the storm.
That's funny, you were talking about that. You're like, actually, Eagles versus a Storm, Eagles should lose, I guess, unless they're in the eye of the storm is the conclusion that we came to. But you can't follow the eye of the storm when Winthrop is constantly changing its position on you and communicating as well as they have. They have just kind of, they've come to the conclusion that this is their game already. The vision that they've placed down is defensive, it's aggressive, they are focused on all of these objectives, and they're looking for all the pressure they can. That's going to be a showstopper there from Clyde. Doxa will end up going down, and hey, Harrisburg found themselves a small victory there.
Oh, there's just a simple joy in life in watching set just suplex people from behind, and entirely unexpected. He has no flash, couldn't do anything about it. By the time you're in range of popping the ultimate against him, he's already got you. So a good opportunity that Clyde recognized, finding some value, because he has to be the one to bring this game back. He was already the one team fighting his way in the last game, but this time around, the Xin and the Gnar are not the champions that team fight so effortlessly as the Wukong and the Morgana. They need special conditions, they need a lot more gold, and they absolutely have to go in or they will just die right away. They can't back out. So much emphasis falls on Clyde as opposed to last time around, and I like seeing that he's recognized that, gone with the Lucidity Boots as well, maximizing the uptime of his ultimate and flash to make the plays that we just saw.
We'll see if he is capable of continuing with that, though. That was a nice little pick out that they managed to get onto Doxa and Clyde. Again, just superior positioning, being able to hide in that bush until Doxa moved just far enough forward. But now we have got, the second Shelly, Kelly, Shelly Jr., Gerald, whatever it is. She
Kelly.
has spawned.
We'll go with Kelly. You
I like Kelly, all right?
Go with Kelly.
We'll go with Kelly. Perfect. Okay, I got the approval from Crumbs. That means we're doing it. Rumble is going to be the first one to make a move here. There is less than 2 minutes until this dragon comes up. And it looks like Harrisburg isn't really aware whatsoever of this Rift Herald being taken again.
And not interested in taking these fights right now. This Rumble is giga-fed. They are at such an item disadvantage. They're losing the side lanes too, so they're not in any position to look for these fights. They want to get these picks. So around these major objectives, when Winthrop ends up grouping up, is exactly when they want to back off. They want to find the Jinx when she's solo, when the Nautilus is roaming, looking for vision. And the sign that I look for and when Harrisburg is actually looking to fight is always, where's Clyde at? What position is he in? And is he ready to flash onto somebody? Because that's going to be the sign that the rest of the squad is going to be there to follow up.
And his shorter ace in a bush nearby, because that has certainly been a play that Harrisburg has found success with. The teleport coming in and the root under towers so much damage. The equalizer hits the backside. Get a little flame spitting on the front as well. Sir Kenji has to flash away from this one as the Victor ultimate comes out. The Super Mega Death Rocket is going to miss. Sandflame manages to get the lockdown onto Frost Force, but Hybrids is back in this fight. Saskia getting so much damage off with these autos. The zap is gonna miss, but I think Winthrop proved their point.
They were so close on the side of Harrisburg to actually getting the kills that they needed, but they had not enough coordination. The CC was not layered enough, and particularly was Sir Kenji finding Clyde earlier. They didn't give them the opportunity to find the engage that they wanted. They wanted to go in. The Rift Herald's already there. It's going to be a fight in their favor. The turret will go down quickly, and when you've got the double marksmen that are not the focal point of the start of the fight, it's so much easier for them to deal damage, and with the item advantage they currently have, it was going to be even easier than before. So you've got these 4 members, but it doesn't matter. The hook goes on to Clyde, CC him, make sure that he doesn't get the ultimate that he wants, and despite Xin going in, Gnar has to flash in to try to make it, but it's already too late. The follow-up on his ultimate is not there. Kai'Sa has to ult to get in position, but they just don't have enough damage at the moment to actually take him out. So he can just flash away and keep his Darksteel stacks alive.
And now, Winthrop has found themselves sitting and waiting as Soul Point will be the next dragon for them. Not contested really at all for any of these objectives because Winthrop keeps winning the fights and pushing Harrisburg so far back before the objective even spawns. Like Amos is trying to find some sort of recourse here for the pressure that has been put on. This is going to be the first tower for Harrisburg in this match, and that gold lead is just growing larger and larger for Winthrop. Now Saskia has that red buff. It felt like, I mean, I already said it at like 15 minutes. It already feels like the way that Winthrop is moving around, they know this game is theirs. There's no question in their minds.
And it's even more one-sided than the last one, right? The last game felt like the team fights could have gone either way. There was a lot of hope for Winthrop. This time around, though, the score, the objectives, the scaling, so many things are on their side that they just can march confidently and do no wrong. It's going to be so difficult for them to make the mistakes that will cost them this game because it is only Clyde that can actually find them and punish them when they are out of position, so they can take the side lanes, they can take the team fights. It's really difficult for Harrisburg to find exactly what they want, and they're on a timer because Winthrop have done a good job at their objectives, and they'll have to fight in these next 3 minutes. You really do not want to be giving an Infernal Soul to a composition that has 4 damage threats. The value is just too high.
The last thing Rumble needs is more damage, more burn on this one. But they're looking for it, and there's not a lot that Harrisburg can do here. The vision has been absurd from Winthrop, and not just that, but honestly, the sweeping has made it essentially impossible. You're talking, Crumbs, about they need to find that pick, but they haven't been able to because they haven't been able to keep vision and ensure that a pick they find is alone and not just supported by the rest of the team. Hybrids finds out Sand Flame, but that's going to be a Mega Gnar soon, so a disconnect from that fight means just a little pressure in the top side again. Baron will be spawning here very, very soon. And they've got 3 minutes on that Dragon, so Winthrop has many options in their belts.
Yeah, even the 20-minute Baron is actually an option, not just for the vision to take the fight, but with your double marksman, it's going to be fairly easy to take if you have a few minutes. But it's not necessary for them to go for it just yet. They know how valuable the Dragon is going to be. The Baron could potentially put them in a spot where if they lose the fight out of the Baron debuff or mispositioning, then they actually give Harrisburg an opportunity to claw back into this game. The Dragon, worst case scenario, they get the Dragon for you, right? You stall that soul just 5 more minutes, not as big a deal. So they're going to play it slow, make sure that they maintain the item advantage that they currently have, which is about a legendary up on each of their counterparts. More than enough to win any fight that they so want. So they'll spend their next few minutes and vision repurposing the topside vision to the blue side so that they can control the Dragon and make sure that the fight that happens there is entirely on their terms.
They cleared out the jungle as well. Now Harrisburg has to stay together. They have to be safe here. All of their vision has been cleared out. And Winthrop, I'm sure they have to know that Winthrop, with the amount of vision they've placed down, has just loaded their jungle up. So this is where Harrisburg has to be really careful. You got to stick together. You cannot be separating yourselves like this because one pick from Winthrop could be the end of the game. And Clyde is going to be the one who is caught out here. You got to stay together when you're that far behind, and it's going to give Doxa another kill.
He was looking for the flank angle, hoping that somebody would be there by themselves, but because they cannot contest the mid wave, every single carry is really far back, and as a result, Clyde ends up being overextended, immediately punished. The one thing that he can be at least happy with is that, well, the Dragon wasn't up just yet. He's going to have another opportunity. It's only a kill. He was already 1 and 5. He's just very weak, lowest level in the game, so he's going to just be an ultimate and hopefully a haymaker. He might just die before that gets popped, but at least he'll have some value still in these fights.
2 levels up for Frost Force as well, so Shorter Ace has really been struggling here, and it's going to be those players who have been watching a gray screen much more than the rest of the team who are falling far behind. But 2 levels is very, very tough right now. Like a Moss, luckily, is maintaining things here, doing a great job considering the fact that Doxa has lane. And Clyde is once again gonna be found out alone in enemy territory. This can't be happening, Crumb.
It is though. Okay, 5 seconds. This is the Hail Mary, though. They're going Hail Mary right now, going after the Baron. I mean, you have a Kraken Slayer, but she's so far behind. All it takes is a trinket and a snicker over to the side of Baron, looking at the rest of the squad, and they know that they have to back off. So it's going to be a free Dragon, free mid-tier 2. This game is just collapsing for Harrisburg University. Winthrop is crushing in Game 2.
It's insane, too, to think that last game we saw Harrisburg do such a good job of very proactive play and kind of forcing Winthrop onto the reactive play. Towards the end of the game, really, it was much more even, like you said, Crumbs, for the first half. This game has been all Winthrop all game. And I love how even though they are very confident, as you mentioned, for that Baron instead of Baron or Dragon, they're like, yeah, we do have an advantage here. We do have a massive gold lead now. 11K or just over 10K here for Winthrop. Still, though, prioritizing objectives that are going to help them close the game out.
Yeah, prioritizing objectives and prioritizing where they can get a lot of gold, which has been the support. They got so many kills off the bottom lane at the beginning of the game. They've just kept going after Clyde this whole time, and he has not altered his game plan much. He's kept looking for these opportunities. He's more than half the deaths of his own squad, and so it's so much harder and rougher for the team when he's going down, when the rest of the team doesn't have the ways to set up plays on their own. So finding the critical member that can engage, killing them consistently, has made this snowball look seamless. And now with the Infernal Soul, the poke that can come out from the Jinx and Tristana, just a zap or a few auto attacks from Tristana is gonna be enough to take some of these champions out of the fight.
And a red buff right now on Saskio and Frost Forest, two massive members. So much damage coming from both of these players right now. They're looking for something here. Clyde might be found out again. We have some pings that Baron will likely be started here because there's so much pressure, and a nice distraction by Hybrids on the bottom side should ensure that collection here. Hybrids is more than okay with going down for the sake of his team. The only downside is he may not get this buff. He will not get this buff.
I like this trade, though. You really are never going to win a 5v5 right now. The best you can do is get a kill on the side lane, and so you get someone, you remove the Baron buff, which can be relevant in this next Baron push, since the Aatrox will want a 1-3-1, and so he won't have the Baron available to empower his own minions and make that push much harder. You got a shutdown as well. Gold went over to the Kai'Sa, so it's something. You just have to chain these small wins, air quotes wins, because you're giving a Baron as well, and just continue to do this without giving much more to the enemy. So it's the plan for Harrisburg. It's a long ways up, but the fact that they're still thinking about proactive plays is a good sign, and it shows health in a best of 5.
They have to stay safe, though. That's been my concern. I mean, obviously, with Clyde getting caught out 2 times in a row like that, 7 deaths and only 3 takedowns here for this player, it's a real struggle for Harrisburg. You got to stay together. You need to be communicating well, and you need to have full commitment when your team decides to go in. So yes, the little victories are good, but that is still a victory, still something that you can say that you did right in response to a negative play. But that gold lead is just continuing to rise in favor of Winthrop. They're getting more pressure in every single lane, throwing down so much vision so that they can just continue this oppressive play style, and nobody on Harrisburg has been able to do anything about it.
I mean, this gold lead is ginormous now. You're looking at 12K up, double marksman with the Rumble. You can just lay down the red carpet behind the turret, force them to back off at the range of your carries, and that ought to be enough to win the fight. As long as you keep your eyes on where Clyde is at, the rest of the team won't be able to follow up. So look at this. Tristana's just jumping in. She has enough damage. Oh my gosh.
That's not okay. They've got a family. How are you going to do them like that, man? Winthrop just slaughtering here. They are turning this game into an absolute bloodbath. 14-4 for the kills. It is 53K to 40K. 13K lead, and they are going to go back in. Clyde gets a nice showstopper, throwing Tristana back in. Serkenji's going to have to flash away here from Sandflame, but the equalizer hits the backside. The W comes out, but it doesn't stun anyone. Flash over the wall. Frost Force is going to find a double kill, and now Shorter Ace is the one on the run, but Hybrids is the one dealing the damage and picking up the kill. And once more, Winthrop find themselves a successful fight with the sacrifice of one player.
I like seeing that Winthrop finally is just like, you know what? We could just dive you and kill you relentlessly. We are so far ahead. So they're going to go look to end the game here. The Jinx is strong enough. I think they've got it.
Absolutely. They've still got the Baron buff too, so these minions can do most of the work while Winthrop tries to deal damage here. Look at the amount coming from Saskio, though, just on the explosion, just on that AoE, popping like a moss for so much damage. And now the middle inhibitor has been exposed. We got a TP down, actually, so they are going to engage on this. Serkenji doesn't have enough mana. The equalizer coming in on the backside. In comes Hybrids with the ultimate, who has to flash over the wall so low the Ignite might be enough. The teleport in from Doxa, though. Clyde trying to find access to the backside. Victor will get a kill, though.
Just a little bit off, and they would have been able to take down the Aatrox again. But now it's 25 seconds for the Infernal Dragon. That could be a huge thing because the Rumble is not going to be available. It has to be the last stand for Harrisburg. Your Nexus is exposed. Your Tristana is jumping into your Victor and just two-shotting him. Doesn't even need to proc the explosive shot. They have to mark their territory here. Teleport comes down. Kai'Sa is here. We're going to get the last fight most likely. They should not be looking to give this Dragon up. They can't fight at a numbers advantage. They are that strong.
They're doing a lot of damage to it as well. Doxa trying to wait for the rest of the team to engage on this. They're just looking for that last hit, but no, it won't be enough. Doxa will be able to rocket jump out of that, but Harrisburg, not just a small victory, that's a pretty big one.
Yeah, it is. That buys them a lot of time. That means that their base and their waves will be stabilized by the time that this wears out, and Winthrop won't be able to take that fight. It'll be too risky to go into the Elder Dragon despite how strong they are. And this is just the earlier fight. The Rumble just got double tagged by the laser and the Kai'Sa W at the same time. Didn't expect that much damage because he had the stopwatch, could have lived through it. And let's see if Winthrop feels like extending themselves to try to end the game here. I think it'd be unwise with the Baron being so close to being back on the map. But Shorter Ace could just die here. He's so low.
Shorter Ace decides he got to engage. Frost Forest is going to use the Zhonya's. The Super Mega Death Rocket hits like a moss, but not as much damage as one is intended. But look at the Void Seekers from Hopeful. Going to pick up another kill, and that means Shorter Ace is out of the fight. Looking for a pinch here from Sir Kenji, but Clyde is in the wings. We're going to get the Hex Flash over the wall. Doxa and Saskia once again sitting on these red buffs. And it won't be enough for Harrisburg to take a fight.
Yeah, not worth it to trade that jungler for jungle. You see the damage of the Elder already. It was a good attempt to keep Frost Forest alive with the Locket, but unfortunately didn't last long enough as the Dragon dot still ticked onto him and got that kill. But they tried. They'll just have to wait this one out and look for the Baron fight. It won't be too long. The buff is about to wear out on the side of Harrisburg, so they just have to be a little bit patient, and then they're still 12,000 gold up. I mean, the wallet advantage is ginormous. It is going to be incredibly difficult to lose a fight on even terms.
But, you know, I mean, they had about a 12 gold. I think they had a 13K gold lead when taking that Baron, so at least preventing any lead. In fact, it might have been a loss, and Clyde now might be looking for something. Sir Kenji has to use the Blast Cone to get over into the Wolf Pit. It'll be a disconnect from the fight with Harrisburg here, trying to bait out a fight and starting up this Baron.
That's right, they just won a fight, so they're gonna have to turn. Let's see how Winthrop plays this. Baron's already half.
So much damage coming down. Hybrids just waiting for the right moment. Out comes the Equalizer, and Doxa melts Clyde into the ground. The red team is going to pick up the Baron, but it won't matter if the members of your team aren't alive. Hopeful now has jumped back onto Hybrids. They might find themselves consolation here, but now with the damage that Aatrox is putting out, now the last surviving member goes down, and that is an easy pickup, an easy win, and a Game 3 tie for Winthrop.
Oh, a commanding victory as well. 32 minutes, so average game time, but the game really never felt like it was out of their hands. The Elder fight was the only moment that was a little bit close. Everywhere else, it was just a landslide victory out of them.
Wonderful game, and hey, that means that we're getting at least 4 games today, this best of 5. We're not going to get any shortage of spectacular plays. Game number 1, Harrisburg finding a pretty definitive victory, but this one was entirely in Winthrop's hands. That's going to tie up the series just to start here. Will we get a Silver Scrapes, Crumbs?
I don't know. That was a really one-sided one. If I had to weigh one of these wins against the other, I'm going to take Winthrop's over Harrisburg's, because the first one, you get the feeling for each other. The second one, when you know what the opponent's bringing to the table, I felt like the preparation that was assumed from the first game and applied to the second was really good. The leaving the set again, punishing him, and banning out the Morgana were moves I really liked by Winthrop here that I think can not take us to Silver Scrapes and just give us 2 more games.
very likely if they're able to pick up some of those champions like the Rumble, so much damage, the Jinx, you got a lot of potential bans now for Winthrop. So Harrisburg is going to have to tread lightly in the next couple of games. We are going to take a very short break though before hopping into that, and we're going to immediately after head into the State Farm Analyst Desk. Let those beautiful faces break all the action down. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back with more Collegiate League of Legends.
Welcome back to the 2021 College League of Legends Championship. After game number 2 of this series, Harrisburg managed to actually find themselves on the losing end after Winthrop managed to tie it all up. And whew, this was a very different tone than game number 1. I think that everyone on the analyst desk, the caster side, and in the audience have to agree on that. But Emily, if we're talking about what really set the tone for the rest of the game, we have to look at some of the decision making on the side of the jungle position.
Yeah, so early on in this game, Shorter Ace actually takes a pretty risky and bold play to go for this bot lane gank. He basically goes from red to blue to Gromp into this gank, and immediately gets punished because the Rumble is also pathing bot side, so they end up giving up 2 really early kills here. And the reason why I wanted to point this out is not to say that's necessarily a bad idea, because I actually don't mind it, but to show how punishing an early play like this can be, especially on the Xin Zhao, when your whole idea is that you do want to get involved in lanes, right? You're not going to be going up in these insane clear speeds against the Rumble and the Morganas, like we like to see from a lot of these more farm-heavy junglers. So I actually don't hate this decision, but because it happens like this, it ends up setting him really, really significantly far behind, and the Rumble becomes a force in this game.
The way that it did play out just held a totally different fate for the side of HU Storm from that. And I think on the side of Winthrop, though, if you're talking about what they're doing well, Five Fire, we did see a lot more movement from them.
Yeah, so they were able to move around the map and find these plays. Now, some of this does come off the bot lane, but we see here Serkenji moving into the mid lane, forcing Lycamaz back. At the exact same time as well, you have Hybrids in the top lane, able to, you know, play this 1v2 out, get his advantage, but Frost Force is also right behind him to back him up. You know, in the last game, we saw HU a lot of times had the numbers, had the playmaking there, but this time it seems like Winthrop was always ready for whatever play they were going to try to go for, and they were setting up their own with their own numbers. So I'm really glad to see that they bounced back and that game one didn't hurt them too much.
That exact point is very much worth touching on because, Emily, it's not like HU Storm lost their muster behind them. They were trying to make things happen with their team fights.
Yeah, and I appreciated that they tried to go for some of these plays in the mid game, despite the fact that, as we're going to see here, this ends up being a little bit of a wallet difference. They feel like they can kind of go for this fight because Hybrids was a bit separated off initially in the bot side. But I mean, I appreciated this from HU, despite the fact that obviously they do not come out on the winning end of this. We have talked about how sometimes we see Winthrop kind of waffle around a lot of their advantages, and this game in and of itself, like, they had an insane gold lead. They had control of this game the entirety of the game, yet at some points we really didn't see them push those advantages. And like, watching the game, it felt like it was a lot closer always. So I actually really did appreciate that HU Storm kept going for these plays. They knew their route and avenue back into the series. It didn't end up working out for them. A lot of it is also that, you know, their team fighting comp is a lot different, right? If the Jin Zhao doesn't pay off, he's not going to be as big in team fights. And the previous series, we had the Wukong, the Morgana, things that are going to be a lot easier to execute when you're looking at like a full out 5v5. But again, I still appreciated that they were willing to go for these plays, especially when Winthrop gave them openings.
Yeah, I mean, and just to piggyback off that, right, in these fights, they were so far behind, but they were still making some really clean plays, right? It's hard to team fight on the Xin Zhao, but he found a flank angle, was able to use the ulti to almost insec some of the Winthrop players in, and, you know, Serkenji had to flash out on 1 HP, Frost Force had to flash out on 1 HP, so they were still making them work for it despite all the disadvantages.
Yeah, and putting that best foot forward continually. But one thing that was mentioned by Emily moments ago that, Pfeiffer, I want to get your thoughts on is the fact that some of these teams, even when they have these tremendous leads, and the eye test is telling us that the game is pretty much over, they still seem to extend a bit longer. So as we take a look at some of the replays that are provided by Stream Recap, Five Fire, explain to me what's going on here.
Well, so this is the culmination of just 10 or 15 minutes of shenanigans and tomfoolery going around. You know, there's an open Nexus. The team that's down 13,000 gold is pulling the Baron and getting wiped for it. But Winthrop definitely, you know, it looked like they had this massive lead. They were up 15,000 gold at one point with an Infernal Soul, and they weren't quite able to close it out. You know, they got the open Nexus, and then they just backed off, and then there was the Elder Dragon Dance and all of this stuff going on. So, you know, Harrisburg, you know, they're showing that they can continue to contest and that they're really comfortable in these late game situations, even when they're behind. But Winthrop is showing that, you know, if they get the lead, right, while it might be a little difficult for them to close out, they might need to work on some things here and there. Ultimately, they did end up getting the win, and that's what matters. So, you know, we'll have to see if they're able to close out more cleanly in the next couple of games, or if Harrisburg is going to be able to punish them and find those comebacks.
You have to imagine in that moment, perhaps it's a battle of confidence in your team's ability to continue with that strength, even if it takes a little longer to get to the end, rather than going for that moment to close it right there. And if we're looking over towards our next game, because it is currently a tied-up series, we know that Winthrop has selected blue side. So we are getting that continuation of the same side selection for both of these teams. Emily, when we are looking at that and the fact that a lot of these games do come to later moments, do you think there there are ways that maybe some punishment could try to happen from the opposing team that is kind of on the onslaught of the strength that that WU was able to bring through?
I mean, I think both of these teams seem really comfortable with their sides, actually. HU Storm, because they do want to go for these team fighting compositions that are really based around their comfort picks, right? As we saw, like, I don't think, unlike the previous series, we're going to see a ton of draft swings. These two teams actually seem to be pretty comfortable with each of their drafts going in. I do think, their last draft for HU Storm was a little bit riskier because of the things I said about the team fighting composition. It's just a little bit more difficult to execute. Not that Shorter Ace didn't have really good team fight targeting on the Xin Zhao, as Firefire pointed out. But, it just doesn't do as much for a team fight as a Morgana or something like that. So if we're going to see something similar coming out of HU Storm, you definitely want to make sure that those early interactions with lanes really, really end up paying off, especially if you are on something like the Xin, and then making sure that they have a really strong 5v5, because that's obviously the way that they would prefer to win, and also their avenue, even if they're playing from a deficit.
What about you, Firefire? Are you aligned with that having someone like Lycamoss on the Victor continue again, even though they took the L in the last game, keeping that comfort? Or do you think that there was enough that got rattled in the cages to maybe suggest they should try and switch something up?
I don't think there's anything wrong with the compositions necessarily. I think they can run it back once again and be happy with their teamfight comp. They just need to remember their identity, right? They're this teamfight composition that wants to scale up. They don't want to do all this crazy stuff early. On that note, maybe I would like to see Shorter Ace on something that is a bit more stable of an early game like the Morgana or like an Udyr. Something that, he can just farm up on, know he'll be useful, know he can contest some early objectives while still being able to scale into those late game team fights. But yeah, beyond that, I honestly don't think we're going to see too much change. Both teams seem pretty happy to run it back. So we might see a couple of new picks and bans, but I think overall the compositions are going to stay about the same.
We've seen the Xin Zhao work out for Shorter Ace. Maybe I'll just brush off that 250 moment from this game, wash it away, and move on forward. Because guess what? Everybody that's watching, we have ourselves a series, because Winthrop and HU Storm are currently tied up 1-1 as they push forward in this best of 5. One step closer to finding out who will be our remaining finalist here for our CLOL action. Don't go anywhere.